today we have Richard Sherman. How you doing, Richard?
I'm well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
No, thank you. Thank you for doing this interview with me. So I thought we'd start off with what's your first memory of computers?
Um, it was probably about 45 years ago, um, and it was at the time I was quite young, probably about 12, going on 13, and I used to go over to my aunt's and meet up with my cousins there every couple of weeks. They're quite close family, and my cousin Dean, quite a clever guy, and he it was, it was when back then he was quite a recluse.
Okay.
So like he wouldn't he would be really absorbed in what he was doing,
Hmm.
and often he wouldn't want to come out of his room because of it.
Right.
Even when family come over, and I used to go and knock on his. I arrive and I'd go to my aunt. Is Dean around? Oh well, I don't know. You could knock on his door, but you know. So I'd go up there, knock on his door, and go, Dean, it's Richard, and because he's such a clever guy, he was always great to talk to. And one such occasion, he opened the door and said, "Yeah, you got to look at this. I've got a computer." And I said, "Oh, what's that?" Like, and there he was, and he was like, "I've just written this program called Lunar Lander," he said to me, and it was on. He was using a 1K ZX81,
Oh well. Okay.
and I was just transfixed by it, and I was like, "That's just amazing! How did you do that?" And I just thought, "I want one of these." And it was my cousin who sort of got me started, um, and he was sort of quite inspiring, because I mean he had things like a telescope, and like his room was like a treasure trove of tech, and he loved doing art, so he had all this. He used to draw all his tech as well. So on his walls, he would have like pictures of uh, sort of like the planet's solar system,
Okay.
and so on. And back then, um, it was quite inspiring. And I remember showing my best friend at the time, um, and he I did the ZX81, and I had started to program it, and it was the thing that kind of um, sort of gave sort of I had a bit of a bond. It's the first time I kind of bonded with my father, really.
Oh right. Okay.
I didn't get on so well with my dad when I was young,
Hmm.
because he worked nights. He was either working at the Metropolitan Police or doing work for the ambulance service, doing shift work. And so the time that he would be going to bed, I'd be up sort of, making noise, which he used to hate.
Oh
So
right.
I had to be really quiet. So
Yeah.
finding a hobby that was actually quite a quiet hobby, like using a ZX81 with no sound,
Hmm.
was like the ideal hobby.
Oh right. Okay. I've got you.
So that's how I got started, and it sort of inspired my dad,
Yeah.
because then he bought a ZX81 too, and my best friend, he started to get interested in computing and programming like me. So there was kind of like a nucleus of just the of myself, um, my cousin Dean, um, my friend Clement, um, and my father. So there's 5 of us really into all this early retro stuff, and you know, I remember sort of writing, trying to write games in 1K, and it was huge challenge. Had to use some really quite bizarre memory tricks to kind of get anything moving on the screen,
Yeah, yeah.
that sort of thing.
So was it the ZX80 or the ZX81, which was your first machine?
It was the ZX81.
Was the ZX81?
Yeah, yeah, and basically back then, I, I seem to remember like when I had the ZX81, I didn't have any taped games like from the shops or anything.
Okay.
Like the only games that I tried, because obviously you start off with type-ins,
Yeah.
and so the only games that sort of like were that I tried were ones that I typed out of magazines, and often they didn't work, and it would frustrate the hell out of me. Why are these magazine companies producing these games and they're not even working? I'm like, ugh. And I'll be like, how do I fix this? So that's how I got into programming. Really, is
Right. Okay.
A through my cousin, and B through the frustration that a lot of typing programs
Mm.
often didn't work, and I was like, okay, I've got to fix this because I want it to work. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you know uh, the trauma of trying to save the result was always a headache.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So fast forward to present day, if you like. Now you run a Facebook group called Next Launcher.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about what Next Launcher is?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's uh, well, I'm not sure where to start with that, because Next Launcher really, it started off as an idea of just being a launch pad for um, where your games are, to try and bring them all together so you don't lose your favorites out of out of all the huge amounts that you have on your
Gotcha.
SD card.
Yeah.
And I just, I mean, it occurred to me that like there are a lot of people out there with, like, I don't know, folders with hundreds of games in,
Yeah.
and they're probably picking like they probably only use maybe 20% of them or something,
Mm.
but trying to navigate to them all the time, well, for me, to try and navigate to the ones that I liked was always a bit of a pain, unless I put them always in like in certain folders, and even then it was like it was getting a bit tedious um, getting to them. In fact, the idea really came from a version um, uh, of a piece of software I wrote for the Spectrum Plus 3, um, called Plus 3 Menu,
Okay.
and I developed that,
Yeah.
and so the Plus 3 would boot into Plus 3 Menu, um, and it would have on that all the games that are on the disc on the Plus 3.
Oh
Well,
wow.
back in those days, uh, on a Plus 3 disc, you couldn't fit that many games on on there, and often if you're buying Plus 3 games, they'd only sell you one game on a disc. And I used to think, well, it's a waste of space. So some of the games that I had developed on the Spectrum 48, I basically sort of put on a disk
Yeah.
and generated a menu to get access to them. The other reason why I created the menu in the first place on the +3 was because, like, it was proving to be a hard time for me to get to use my +3 because my sister just was hell bent on playing Manic Miner on my machine and wouldn't get off my machine.
Yeah.
So what I did, in fact, I didn't do this with Next Launcher, but I worked on a password system on the menu. So, like, uh, like the different games would only load if you'd put in the right password at the beginning of running the software.
Yeah.
Before it launched. And she was quite upset about that. I got told off, and I think eventually my +3 was given. Yeah, it was given to my young cousin who was trying to learn and get on at school. That was later on when I got my first PC, or was it my first PC? It might have been a bit earlier than that, but yeah. So she got it.
Yeah. +3s are worth some money on eBay now. You probably pay up to about
Yeah,
300 quid for them.
yeah. Well, anything sort of £150 upwards for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Definitely.
and I don't know. A lot of people rave about the toast rack,
Mm.
but I think the +3 is right up there with it, because the thing is, as much as the toast rack is good in that it's got all the keyboard legends,
Yeah.
and it's kind of an iconic piece before, like, the shift to Amstrad.
Yes. Yes.
Really, the +3 was a step in the right direction with the disk, with a disk drive that,
Yeah.
you know, um, I mean, up until then, you had these dodgy micro drives,
Yeah. The Q,
and
like the QL.
yeah,
Yeah.
really and truly, I mean, people really they make a habit of flaming Alan Sugar for for taking over the Sinclair business, but when you think about it, I mean, no one says boo-hoo about the micro drives.
Mm.
And you look at how innovative the +3 disk drive replacement is. It's a step in the right direction, and no one gives Sugar an ounce of credit for kind of that change. And I can
No.
see perhaps why they might have been a bit sort of um, sort of unhappy with the fact that Sinclair had to sell its business. And I suppose, to be fair, I think perhaps if it had landed on the lap of anyone, anyone else, perhaps it would have been the same sort of discontent uh, as there is with Sugar. But um,
Do you think
there-
it's more to do with the love of the design rather than the functionality because it's Sinclair?
mm, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, um, Next Launcher
Yeah.
is a a platform to launch your favorite games, to have them saved in an orderly place, um, linked directly a boot time, so you can just one click and run, instead of click, decide on what version of Sinclair operating system it should run by
Yeah.
at each launch. I just thought to myself, well, there's got to be a method of not having to go, oh, did I run this in 48 4K mode? Did it work in 128 mode? Should it only work in, you know, in that mode? I mean, the beauty about the Next is it gives you it gives you the basis of trying to run things the way you want, and it tries to be everything for everyone.
Yeah.
But where it falls short a little bit is that, you know, like for maybe the novice retro gamer, he's going, oh well, why doesn't this file work? Why do I have to keep going through the same, you know, why do I have to do this like X amount of times? I don't think I'll use that TZX file anymore. It's too long. It's too long in the tooth to make it work with the Pi daughter board, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so kind of launchers there to try and make it a more enjoyable process, really. And there's additions that I've added, as you are aware, you know, like the virtual Sinclair watch and the virtual Sinclair TV and other aspects that I've added. In fact, there's a new version on the way that that expands things a little bit more, but it's a bit too early to talk about them just at the moment.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So what does the Next launcher TV do? What's that feature?
Well, that's there to kind of give the user some interaction with some favorite websites directly from your Next. So all you need is a mobile phone, and the version of Next Launcher, the recent release at this point in time, is Next Launcher QR edition, and the QR, meaning the QR codes, are your hot links to recommended Spectrum sites, and they will grow accordingly. I've got a number of sites on there, and it's interesting because I think I recently saw somebody is actually developing some QR code related software on the spectrumnext Facebook page recently. I saw.
Okay, so they may have took inspiration from your work.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah.
It's just a simple idea, and it's, you know, it doesn't require much apart from you holding up your phone to your TV screen when the QR appears. You know.
Is there any other features of the Next launcher that you'd like to talk about?
There's one feature that's quietly being developed slowly, and the first iteration was out in the last release, which is the virtual assistant. I've called it the virtual assistant, but basically it's to give you a bit of fun in the process of using launcher. And we mustn't forget that, like, you know, what drove us all to retro was just the fun and excitement of doing something new and crazy. Now, okay, we use virtual assistants everywhere nowadays with Google Assistant and whatever. And I thought, wouldn't it be good to add a bit of history inside Next Launcher, get Next Launcher to talk to you and drop information about the Sinclair history to you as you use the software before you use your game, just as a just a as a bit of fun, really. So I spent a lot of time um, creating a lot of text to speech and producing some nice little snippets of history in Next Launcher, which will have your Next start talking to you um, uh, at different moments when you're using it, particularly when it switches to screensaver mode, because it's becoming more of an OS as each iteration goes on.
Stop touching my joystick like that. It tickles when you press fire.
I've noticed that, other people are picking up on this idea. Let's have a more simpler front end. And I now see that, like, other people are starting to think that same way. So even if you don't end up using Next Launcher at all, whatever, there are people who are now trying to create next Windows. I read the other day.
Yeah.
We're trying to simplify the technology.
Yeah. Gives people a choice, doesn't it?
Yeah. That's all. That's what it should be. You have a choice of what you want to use on your Next. If the good thing with Launcher, it adds an element of fun. You don't have to use it when you load up. You can just press the button and it quits out, and you can drop down to the prompt. It doesn't disable anything about in your use of the Next. You can get access to the operating system as you want. It's easy to quit, so it's no obstacle. Unlike all the other games, you'll find the other Next games, you start running them, the only way you can get out of the game is to reset the thing. I mean, come on, guys. So I basically made sure that in Next Launcher you could quit straight out of Next Launcher, straight back into Next OS if you want it, because there are developers who want to get their hands in there, and start coding. There's guys who want to code, there's guys who want to retro play, and there are some people who want Next Launcher just wants to tell them funny jokes.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I've added a few of those in there, but it's just how the vibe is,
Yeah.
It's just good fun, really, and that's why I do it. As long as it's fun, I'll carry on. And when it stops being fun, then maybe that's the time when I'll hang up my clogs, if you like, and just say, anyone, I'll pass it on to somebody else.
Yeah. So, Richard, have you got any new projects in the pipeline at the moment?
I've got some software that's still in development, called Next UFO, which is something I'm hoping to combine with this game software that that I'm hoping to release. It's a 2 package type game.
Yeah.
So part of it is kind of a retro style game where you play the part of a space invader, basically playing the bad guy,
Yeah.
in revenge of you blowing up all the UFOs from Space Invader game.
Oh
retro
wow.
And the other half of the game
Yeah.
is actually more of sort of like a bit of a spectrum kind of encyclopedia of accounts of close encounters. And once you've won the game, you get to run the second part of the game, which isn't really a game. It's a kind of an educational encyclopedia
Right.
of extraterrestrial encounters and UFO experiences. It's a whole A to Z experience. I think I've got on there about over 500 accounts. So if you win the game, you get the prize, which is this 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 area of the game that allows you to look up all this information and sort of have an informed decision
Right. Okay.
of all these accounts. So it's
So that's coming soon.
yeah, that's coming soon. I don't know how soon that's going to come. It all depends on my workload, because I work for a charity in my day job, and plus Next Launch is about charity in itself.
Yeah.
So sort of it's a bit of a juxtaposition between trying to do everything and keeping my wife happy.
So Richard, I know a while back you were working on this device, which I happen to have the beta version of it, the ZX Retro Wireless. Now I hear that you are now working on a brand new version.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you can tell us about this? I'm all excited.
Yeah. I'm working on sort of basically like given the concept success of the tape version of Next Launcher being produced,
Yeah.
on a cassette USB type look, I thought it could only be like the next iteration, if you like, is to produce something that still kept that concept alive. So instead I've kind of created this new version.
Oh wow.
It's been in
Okay.
development for a while. I mean, obviously you got an early iteration of that.
Yeah.
There was one other version that got sent out to somebody else.
Okay.
But this is streets ahead of that.
Okay.
You know, like this, I mean, it gives you the retro feel. It's individually numbered on the back.
Right. Okay.
It all lights up. It's got a sound to light unit built in.
What does that mean? What does that mean? Sound to light.
So basically, any sound that it picks up in the room, you'll get like different colors. The cassette will change color.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Yeah.
as it works. It's a bit of a novelty, but
I like anything with lights.
yeah, I mean, this allows you to wirelessly connect to your phone or tablet to load software like you would in the conventional old-fashioned way of like a tape loader.
Right.
In fact, that little device inside your Next, the daughter board. I mean, the whole reason why that little daughter board was there in the first place was to be a digital tape loader, um, kind of like a vastly overspec'd, you know, overpowered version of a tape machine. It needn't be that powerful to do what it's doing, you know.
Yeah.
But it's in there in the Next, and of course the advantage, the perceived advantage is that you could use that daughter board for other things. Would I mean, for those people who just want that retro experience, that retro loading, as ZX Retro Wireless will give you that experience. If you don't want to start unscrewing your Next to try and plug in a Pi board, and those Pi Zero boards, they're increasingly more and more expensive,
Okay.
because they're not producing them anymore.
Right.
And at least they're not at this current moment in time. So I'm not sure how that's going to pan out, but I don't know all the ins and outs and that. All I just know is that the good thing with this is I've created some software in Next Launcher that links in with this piece of hardware, so that you can dual speed load with it.
So when you say dual speed, so does that mean you can load it as though it was a regular tape, so normal speed, and then the second speed would be like a turbo load, almost instant? Is that
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
okay.
pretty much it is pretty much like how it'll work on a similar basis as the Pi board, really.
Because that's converting
Not,
the
not
file.
exactly the same, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's converting the file to audio, and then I'm guessing it plays it back through to the Next. So then it thinks it's a tape and loads it that way.
That's it.
But
Yeah,
your
yeah.
device is so you can just use your phone, and I suppose you're using that as a tape via Bluetooth straight to your Next, aren't you, with that device?
Yeah,
So
pretty much so. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, I love that.
yeah.
Mm.
I mean, um, there are ways and means to do similar things, you know, like that.
Yeah.
But I designed this especially for the Next. It plugs in. You plug the Next power supply in one end, and the
Yeah.
other end plugs into your Next. It extends your Next cable, because I don't know about you, but my spectrumnext power supply that's supplied, the cable is, I find, way too short.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I had to buy a
That solves that
breakout
problem.
cable as well.
So it's kind of a bit of a nuisance. Now, I was also thinking of adding a power on and off switch in line with this.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if I'm going to add that or not. We'll just have to wait and see, really.
Yeah.
Producing one of these things does take time and patience.
Yeah,
I'm not a production line, you know, and it's pretty much hobbyist
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
best. I mean, the whole Next Launcher thing is just a project based on the enthusiasm of hobbyists like yourself.
Yeah. We've at the end of the day, we've all got our own commitments and family and full-time jobs.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is just as you say, it's a hobby we can all enjoy together.
But it's just really great that, you know, I've managed to make over £1,500 for Parkinson's research
That's incredible.
last year.
Yeah.
I started on a campaign for cancer research this year for new projects going forward.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
And you know, just slowly taking it step by step. You know, I've had a few pitfalls on the way forward. You know, it's like I'd never, you know, worked in software development before or run, you know, sort of projects like this before, and there was things that were oversights that had happened in the production the souvenir edition of Next Launcher, for example. But I kind of, you know, remedied that as best I could, moved on, and I think the rational, decent people out there have, you know, seen that there's no, you know, there's no ego attached to the project. It's just born out of the love for retro and a passion for trying to achieve something for society.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, really is.
Please share the good vibes and remember to give us good feedback.
Sinclair was a member of British Mensa and chairman from 1980 to 1997. He also participated in marathons, including several New York City marathons. Way to go, Clive.
Right then, Richard, so how long have you been working on Next Launcher?
Well, the next launcher I've been working on for approximately about a year and probably a few months or something. But now, you know, it's more than just me just doing it. I mentioned before that there's like a forum that people can go there for support and everything. But you know, I encourage people to get involved, and there's some great people who I feel are really worthy, you know, team players in the whole process. Yourself, for example, you've been a real asset with the testing of Next Launcher, and along with Paul Young, Dean Woodat, Mark Markowski, and Alan Johnson, for example, and Matthew Preston, and also Richard Faulkner. He's recently joined us. He's going to be helping out with a bit of coding. So,
oh, he's also known as a man in his techno shed.
That's it, Techno Shed, man. You're all fantastic. You're doing, you know, you know, I don't know what to say about that, but you know, you're either helping moderate the forum with me because we've got so many users now, and helping with the testing, because like what people don't realize is before Next Launcher gets released, it goes through a beta testing phase of about 9 releases. I badger all these people with all these beta tests. Sometimes some people go, hang on, I haven't even looked at the beta version 2.6. You're giving me 4.5. What are you doing, man?
Yeah.
But no, it's all great, and also value David LaMonica, who's a magazine reviewer and promotion. He does some fantastic stuff in the retro magazine scene as well, and it's just really great. You know, it's very encouraging to have that support, because everyone wants to see a better product, and it's very different to some, you know, some situations where you can be just working alone, and you know, it guarantees a better product at the end. So you know, I'm half of half of the product, if you like. These other people are an asset to the whole process.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
No,
important to get that in.
I'm sure everybody appreciates those shout outs. I certainly appreciate it. So thank you, Richard. Thanks for that.
And there's also, obviously, the next team who, I couldn't do this without,
No, no.
The 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 hard work that they put in to create the next, what have you, and that, some of the unsung heroes. I mean, what people don't realize as well is what I think about it. Are some of the people who create these dot commands for the next.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they essentially boost the operating system functionality when if you're developing the next in any capacity, or if you want to get more out of it and a branch out into the file system management side of it, then these tools really add to that, because the Sinclair ROM only has so many commands. The fantastic thing, I think, that they did was enable the functionality for these extra commands. Now I know that there was Harlequin boards out there, and there's the divmmc that also attributes to these dot commands and adds to the functionality. Really and truly, it's an underexploited area, and I think you'll see in the growing months and years, especially if the next carries on, or if people still want to use retro computers to develop new systems, they'll be using more of that functionality. And okay, we're getting old. We're not 13 anymore, but
speak for yourself.
I mean, it just adds to it. I mean, you've got like a dot command for browsing, HTTP, for example. I mean, who would have thought that would have been added? That's one example. And there's another command, .play wav, for example. Without that command, I wouldn't have been able to give Next Launcher a voice personality, which is in the current release. So yeah, that's it really.
Next Launcher is charityware. Donations keep the project alive and also help assistance to the underprivileged.
I realise with Next Launcher that it's charity based. Could you tell us a little bit about that and why this charity is important to yourself?
Yeah, it's important to me because, as I mentioned earlier on in the interview, the getting into computers originally when the ZX81, it was the thing that kind of enabled me and my father to sort of connect properly on any kind of level. But before then, it was father son, do this, son. My dad was an army man. He was he was a sergeant in the police. He was a corporal in the army. He was a very strict guy.
Wow.
He controlled the electricity in my room. If I was bad, seriously, if I was bad, I didn't have electricity to use.
Wow. Okay.
So kind of it really, like, the whole thing was driven. It was a driven thing. The charity thing was a driven thing because I wanted to put something in the memory of my father.
Yeah.
Because he had Parkinson's.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
And my best memory with my father was when we connected in terms of how it brought us a bit closer together with doing the programming, and me helping my dad with his coin collection, stamp collection, creating a database for him, and him appreciating me as someone with some worth. And it, you know, I appreciated more of him because, I don't know, he was more engaging, you know, and I wanted to create something in his memory and do something while we're all suffering in the middle of COVID, and something to kind of give something back, you know, and that was the impetus to creating it in the first place. I didn't realize that it was really gonna take off, really. And I was conscious that, like, posting about it in the next Facebook group all the time, I thought, oh, they're going to get a bit tired of me posting a new update every month, as I'm trying to develop this, you know, with such gusto. I best create a Facebook group so that anyone who's really interested can go there and listen to my listen to my posts or read my posts or whatever, and, you know, if they're interested. And if they're not, they don't have to, they can unsubscribe. But fortunately, more people have subscribed than have left.
So there's the digital version of Next Launcher, but you also made a physical USB tape version, didn't you?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was just a limited production.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll show everybody that now. So, Richard.
Yeah.
Another question. So, if you had a time machine, where would you go?
Well, if I had a time machine, there's a few places I would trip back to, but it all depends if I was allowed to take this with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to be able to take the spectrumnext with you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a tricky one, really. There's a few places that I would like to go. I mean, I'd like to go back to a time when I was producing software, and I kind of dropped the ball with the programs that I was writing, and kind of got a bit lost in my life, and took years to actually get on track. I should have really pursued a programming career, and stuck with it, and I guess that's where I should have been. So perhaps back there. But there's no time like the present, really. And one thing's for sure, you can influence what you're doing now, which you can't necessarily do if you go back in time. I mean, it would be great to go back. I'd love to have been able to go back in time to that point just before Clive Sinclair sat down and went, you know what, that QR, that's a good idea. I'll do that advert of me jumping over all those computers. I'd love to be the person who knocked on his door quickly and said, I'm from the future. Look, don't do it. This is the future.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Or something.
Absolutely.
Maybe not the next as like the alternative to the IBM, but
Yeah.
like I'd like to have been able to kind of, say, look, don't shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
But you see, the thing is that you get to a point where something's extremely successful, and then like you basically think you're walking on air. Everything that you do is going to be right. Everybody loves what you've just achieved. So your next project, or your next idea, invention or program or anything like that, you think that's going to work. It's got to work because everything before worked. And as soon as you get in that mindset, that's when you start to fail, because you mustn't. One thing I've learned is you mustn't stop kind of like engaging with people, engaging at all levels of different people, because you'll just trip up. Someone somewhere will go, no, sorry mate, that's not right, or or that looks good, but what the hell does that mean?
Yeah. So going back to the your next launcher, how does people get hold of that piece of software? What do they have to do?
Well, they just have to search on Facebook for Next Launcher. There isn't like a dedicated website like you see a lot of other developers use. I'm not using like developing forums or anything.
Okay.
I want to uncomplicate things, and that's what drives me, because I'm dyslexic and I have to think about. I mean, for me, because I've got a disability, I have to kind of see how the simplest way for me to remember and to do processes. I'm thinking the older we all get, the harder it is to kind of like keep track on everything. It's okay for a lot of developers who are working in business who use different platforms to do it, but there's a lot of people who use retro out there that are just on social media. They love their Next, or they just want to get their hand back in like they were 40 odd years ago, like me. So it's all on Facebook. They can get the downloads, they can get the feedback, they can get the support, they can get the interaction, all on the Next Launcher Facebook page, and everything will hang off that. And if you can't find it on Facebook, if you've got the copy of Next Launcher on your machine, you just need to go to the virtual Sinclair TV and point your phone at the QR code. It will take you there on your phone.
Right. Okay.
So software would help.
If somebody hasn't got Facebook, is there any way of getting hold of the software, or?
Well, not directly. And the reason really, the rationale behind that is that I decided early on that if I just uploaded the software to different sites willy-nilly, that like people would start downloading earlier versions. I mean, just look at the distro. Look at the complications some people have. In fact, myself included, I got a little bit confused myself. You've got one website for like the current edition, and then you've got like a different site where you can download the test version, and then because I suppose because there's been people posting different versions, you know, you can end up thinking that, you know, what you've got installed is the latest version, but no, actually, no, that's actually a developer version. So I don't know. It's not like they're all in the same place and you click the link for each of them. I didn't want that confusion to occur with Launcher. So I wanted to be a bit more in control of how it was going to be distributed. What I appreciate, not everyone's on Facebook. We've got over 950 users on the Facebook page, so it just goes to show people aren't disappointed about that. And
No, it's a lot of people. Yeah.
well,
absolutely.
it seems to work. I mean, it could go, you know, on other platforms, but as yet, I'm just sort of keeping it as is for now, until I find something better. So, but I'm open to ideas, and in fact, anyone who joins the Next Launcher Facebook community and will realise that often, you know, like I put the word out and say, hey, look, what's your feedback on this?
Yeah.
And some people say, oh yeah, I like it, thumbs up. Sometimes people say, why don't you have this feature? And I go, okay, well, I'll see about developing it. And sometimes I can do it, sometimes I can't. Sometimes it takes a bit of engineering to plan it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Well, Richard, it's been absolutely wonderful to get this opportunity to speak to you and you know, talk to you about your projects. So
It's been a pleasure.
yeah, so thank you very much for doing this for me. And yeah,
I mean, probably no one's seen my face before,
yeah.
but now you know, like, why I'm losing all this hair. You know, receiving so much.
The stress of Next Launcher.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you very much, Richard, and
Yeah.
take care. And I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, everyone, for your support as well. It's very much appreciated, not just for myself, but for the charities involved in the development cycle.
Brilliant. Right. Catch you later, Richard.
Cheers.
Thank you.